They pinned a badge to my chest like I was cattle at auction. Limited guest, it said in bold red letters. My daughter Jennifer smiled when she did it. Not the warm smile I remembered from when she was 6 and missing her 2 front teeth. This was different. Cold. Like she was testing how much I could take before I'd break. "There you go, Mom," she said, patting my shoulder the way you'd pat a dog you're about to leave at the kennel. "Just so the staff knows." I stood there in the hotel ballroom, wearing the navy dress I'd bought special for tonight. The one I'd saved 3 months to afford because they said this dinner was to celebrate me. 72 years of life. 50 years of sacrifice. A night to honor everything you've done for us, the invitation had said. The badge felt heavy. Heavier than it should. Around me, guests in expensive suits and designer dresses mingled with champagne glasses, laughing at jokes I couldn't hear. The chandelier overhead cost more than my entire house, probably. Everything sparkled. Everything except the way my son Michael looked at me from across the room, whispering something to his wife that made her cover her mouth and giggle. I touched the badge. Limited guest. What did that even mean? "Mom, you can sit over there." Jennifer pointed to a small table in the back corner, near the kitchen doors where servers rushed in and out. The table had no centerpiece. No name cards. Just 2 empty chairs and a flickering candle that looked like it had been used at someone else's event first. "I thought I'd sit with you and Michael," I said, keeping my voice steady even though my hands wanted to shake. Jennifer's smile stretched wider. Sharper. "Oh, Mom. This is a networking event too. We need the main tables for business contacts. You understand, right? You've always been so understanding." That word. Understanding. I'd heard it my whole life, usually right before someone asked me to give up something that mattered. I walked to the back table. My shoes, the ones I'd polished this morning until I could see my reflection, clicked against the marble floor. Each step echoed. Or maybe that was just in my head. The sound of a woman who'd spent 50 years walking toward people who kept stepping back. A waiter passed by with a tray of appetizers. Tiny, fancy things on silver platters. My stomach rumbled. I'd skipped lunch, wanting to save my appetite for this celebration dinner. I reached for one. The waiter pulled the tray back. "I'm sorry, ma'am. Those are for premium guests only." I looked at him. He looked at my badge. "There's a separate menu for limited guests," he said, not unkindly. Just matter of fact, like he was explaining the weather. "Someone will bring it shortly." He walked away. I sat down. The separate menu never came. From my corner table, I watched my children work the room like politicians. Jennifer in her $1,000 dress, the one I'd seen in a magazine once and thought was beautiful. Michael in his tailored suit, shaking hands with men who looked like they owned buildings. They laughed. They toasted. They moved through that crowd like royalty. I remembered when they moved through grocery stores in hand-me-down clothes, holding my hands so tight I thought my fingers would go numb. "Is anyone sitting here?" A woman about my age approached, gesturing to the empty chair. Before I could answer, a staff member appeared. "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but that seat is reserved." "Reserved?" I asked. "For who?" The staff member looked uncomfortable. I'm not sure. I was just told to keep it empty." The woman left. I sat alone. Across the room, Michael climbed the small stage where a microphone stood ready. He tapped it twice. The feedback squealed, and conversations died down. "Good evening, everyone." His voice boomed through the speakers, confident and warm. "Thank you all for being here tonight. As you know, we've gathered to celebrate someone very special. Someone who taught us everything we know about resilience, about perseverance, about..." He paused. Smiled. The crowd waited. "About knowing your place." Laughter rippled through the room. Not everyone laughed. But enough did. Enough that the sound reached my corner table and wrapped around my throat like hands. "Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family, enjoy the story." Jennifer joined Michael on stage. She was holding something. When I squinted, I could see it was a frame. A picture. "Mom, why don't you come up here?" Jennifer called out, waving me forward. Every head turned. 200 eyes found me in my corner, found the badge on my chest, found the empty table with no food. I stood up. My legs felt like water, but I'd learned a long time ago how to walk when everything inside you wanted to collapse. I'd done it the day I buried my husband. I'd done it the day the bank tried to take our house. I'd done it through 1,000 small deaths that nobody ever put in obituaries. I could do it now. The walk to that stage felt longer than any road I'd ever traveled. My shoes clicked. People whispered. Someone coughed. The chandelier blazed overhead like a spotlight in an interrogation room. Michael handed me the microphone. Say a few words, Mom. Tell everyone what tonight means to you. I took the microphone. It was cold in my hand. But before I could speak, Jennifer held up the frame for everyone to see. Inside was a photograph. Me from about 20 years ago, standing in front of our old house. The house that was falling apart. The house where the roof leaked and the porch sagged and the paint peeled like sunburned skin. This, Jennifer announced to the crowd, is where we came from. This is what we escaped. The word escaped hung in the air like smoke. We wanted everyone to see, Michael added, his arm around his sister's shoulders, how far we've come. How much we've accomplished. Despite everything. Despite. Not because of. Despite. The room applauded. They were applauding my children's success. Their escape. Their triumph over the poverty I'd wrapped around them like a blanket, apparently. Someone in the crowd called out, "Speech from Mom." Others joined in. Speech. Speech. I looked at the microphone in my hand. At my children smiling on either side of me like we were one happy family. At the crowd of strangers who'd paid $200 a plate to eat food I wasn't allowed to touch. At the badge still pinned to my chest. And something inside me, something that had been bending for 50 years, finally straightened up. I reached into my purse. Past the worn wallet. Past the tissues I always carried. Past the reading glasses with the scratched lenses. My fingers found my phone. It was old. The screen was cracked. But it worked just fine. I opened my messages and typed 7 words. Just 7. My hands didn't shake anymore. Then I pressed send. The message went through with a soft whoosh sound that nobody else could hear over the applause. I looked at Michael. At Jennifer. At their smiles that still hadn't realized what was coming. Thank you for this, I said into the microphone, my voice steady and clear. Thank you for showing me exactly who you've become. I handed the microphone back to Michael, unpinned the badge from my chest, and placed it gently on the podium. Then I walked off that stage. I didn't know it yet, but in exactly 30 minutes, my children's phones would start ringing. And nothing would ever be the same again. What would you have done if your own children humiliated you like this? Would you have fought back, or walked away quietly? The bathroom was empty when I pushed through the door. I locked myself in the last stall, the one where the light flickered and made everything look like an old movie. My hands were steady now. Steadier than they'd been in years. I sat down on the closed toilet lid and waited. The phone in my purse didn't make a sound, but I knew the message had gone through. I'd sent it to Robert Chun, my lawyer for the past 30 years. The same lawyer who'd helped me when the bank came knocking. The same one who'd filed the paperwork when my husband died and left me with 2 kids, a mountain of debt, and a house held together by prayers and duct tape. Robert was the only person who knew the truth about what I actually owned. My children thought I was poor. They'd thought it for so long that it became fact in their minds, the way a lie becomes truth if you repeat it enough times. They'd seen the peeling paint and the leaky roof and the furniture from thrift stores. They'd eaten the cheap cuts of meat I'd learned to make taste expensive. They'd worn the Goodwill clothes I'd stayed up late altering so nobody could tell. What they didn't see was the choice behind it all. I could hear the party continuing outside. Music had started playing. Something classical and expensive sounding. The kind of music that makes rich people feel cultured while they eat tiny food and judge people like me. My phone buzzed. One message from Robert. Consider it done. God help them. I put the phone back in my purse and stood up. My reflection in the bathroom mirror looked different somehow. Same gray hair pulled back in the same bun I'd worn for 20 years. Same lines around my eyes from squinting at price tags and bills. Same thin lips that had spent decades saying yes, of course, and I understand, and whatever you need. But something in the eyes had changed. I washed my hands slowly, letting the warm water run over my fingers. The soap smelled like lavender. Expensive lavender, probably. The kind that costs $20 a bottle instead of $3. When I walked back into the ballroom, nobody noticed me. They never did. I'd perfected the art of being invisible over the years, moving through spaces like a ghost. It's a skill you learn when you're poor in a world that doesn't want to see poverty. I returned to my corner table. Still no food. Still no one sitting in the reserved empty chair beside me. On stage, Michael was telling a story about his first business deal. How he'd turned $10,000 into $50,000 in just 6 months. The crowd was impressed. I could tell by the way they leaned forward, by the approving nods, by the whispered conversations about smart investments and natural talent. What Michael didn't mention was where that first $10,000 came from. Jennifer was at a table near the front, her arm draped over her husband's shoulders. Richard something. I'd met him twice. Both times he'd looked at me like I was something stuck to his shoe. He worked in real estate, made 7 figures a year, and thought that made him better than people who counted pennies. My daughter had learned from the best, I supposed. The servers were bringing out the main course now. Filet mignon, from the looks of it. Tiny portions arranged like art on white plates. Vegetables carved into shapes that didn't exist in nature. Sauce drizzled in patterns that probably had French names. A different waiter approached my table. Younger than the first one. He set down a plate in front of me. Chicken. Plain chicken breast with steamed vegetables. The kind of meal you'd find in a hospital cafeteria. Limited guest menu, he whispered, apologetic. I'm sorry. He left before I could respond. I looked at the chicken. It was dry. I could tell without even cutting into it. The vegetables were limp. No sauce. No garnish. No art. I cut a piece and put it in my mouth. It tasted like cardboard soaked in sadness. Around the room, people were moaning about how good their steaks were. Jennifer was laughing at something Richard said. Michael was standing now, moving between tables, shaking hands like a politician at a fundraiser. My phone buzzed again. I pulled it out under the table where no one could see. Another message from Robert. First domino is falling. Wire transfers blocked. Credit lines frozen. Emergency injunctions filed. The next 30 minutes will be interesting. I deleted the message and put the phone away. 23 minutes had passed since I'd sent that first text. A woman at Jennifer's table stood up suddenly. She was holding her phone, her face pale. She leaned down and whispered something to Jennifer, then hurried toward the exit. Jennifer frowned, confused, but went back to her conversation. 18 minutes. Michael's phone rang. I could see it lighting up in his pocket from where I sat. He ignored it. Important people don't answer phones during important dinners. That's what he told me once years ago, when I'd called him during his work hours and he'd let it go to voicemail. The phone stopped ringing. Started again immediately. Michael excused himself from his conversation and stepped to the side of the room. He answered, his face all business. But as he listened, something changed. His jaw got tight. His free hand formed a fist. He said something sharp into the phone, too quiet for me to hear, then ended the call. He looked around the room. His eyes found Jennifer. 15 minutes. Michael crossed to Jennifer's table fast, not bothering with the smooth politician walk anymore. He leaned down and whispered something. Jennifer's face went white. Not pale. White. Like someone had drained all the blood right out of her. She grabbed her purse and stood up. Both of them headed for the exit, trying to look casual, trying not to make a scene. But I could see the panic. I'd seen that look before in mirrors, in my own eyes, during the years when panic was my constant companion. Now it was theirs. Richard followed them out, annoyed and confused. Other people started noticing. The whispers began. That electric feeling that runs through a crowd when something's wrong but nobody knows what yet. I took another bite of my dry chicken. The servers were bringing out dessert for the premium guests. Something chocolate with gold leaf on top. Actual gold. People were going to eat gold while I sat here with chicken that tasted like regret. My phone buzzed one more time. All accounts frozen. Properties under lien. Business assets seized. Investment portfolios locked pending investigation. They're financially paralyzed. What they did to you. I didn't respond. I just sat there, alone at my table, eating my terrible chicken while a party I wasn't really invited to continued around me. Some of Jennifer's friends were checking their phones now, making calls. A few more people hurried out. The band was still playing, but some of the guests were looking around confused, sensing something off the way animals sense earthquakes before they hit. I finished my chicken. All of it. Every dry, tasteless bite. Then I stood up, smoothed down my navy dress, and picked up my purse. Nobody stopped me as I walked to the exit. Nobody said goodbye. Nobody asked where I was going. Outside, the night air was cool and clean. The hotel parking lot stretched out before me, full of cars that cost more than most people's houses. BMWs, Mercedes. A Tesla or two. My 2008 Honda Civic sat in the far corner under a broken light. It had rust on the bumper and a dent in the door from when I'd hit a shopping cart 3 years ago. The air conditioning only worked on the highest setting, and the radio got stuck on AM stations sometimes. But it was mine. Paid off. No loans. No debt. I got in and sat there for a moment, keys in my lap. Through the hotel's glass doors, I could see people moving around inside. More guests on their phones now. More confused faces. The party was falling apart, slowly, like a building collapsing in reverse. And somewhere in there, my children were realizing that the mother they'd pinned a badge on was not the woman they thought she was. I started the car. The engine coughed twice before catching. As I pulled out of the parking lot, I saw them. Michael and Jennifer, standing outside the hotel entrance with Richard. All three of them on their phones. Michael was pacing. Jennifer had her hand over her mouth. Richard looked like he might throw up. They didn't see me drive past. Why would they? I'd spent 50 years teaching them not to see me. But here's what they didn't know, what nobody knew except Robert and me. Where did all that money come from? How does a woman in a falling-apart house have the power to freeze millions of dollars with one text message? The house was dark when I got home. I didn't turn on the lights right away. Just sat in my car in the driveway, looking at the place I'd lived for 47 years. The place my children called an embarrassment. The place they'd escaped from like prisoners breaking free. The porch light was out. Had been for 2 weeks. I kept meaning to change it, but the bulbs were expensive and I had to use the ladder, and my knees weren't what they used to be. Inside, the house smelled like old coffee and the lavender spray I used to cover up the must from the carpet that needed replacing. The furniture was the same stuff I'd had since 1985. The TV was one of those old box kinds that weighed 100 pounds. The kitchen linoleum had a crack running through it like a river on a map. I set my purse on the counter and turned on the small lamp in the living room. The one with the shade I'd glued back together 3 times. My phone rang. I knew who it was before I looked. Mother's intuition, they call it. That thing that lets you feel your children's pain even when they're the ones causing yours. Jennifer's name lit up the screen. I let it ring. Once. Twice. 3 times. 4. On the 5th ring, I answered. Mom. Her voice was high and thin, stretched tight like a wire about to snap. Mom, something's wrong. Something's really wrong. I didn't say anything. Just held the phone to my ear and listened. Our accounts are frozen. All of them. Michael's too. The bank is saying there's some kind of legal hold. They won't tell us anything. And the properties, Mom, the investment properties we just bought, there's liens on them. We didn't put liens on them. Someone did. Someone we don't know. Static on the line. Her breathing quick and shallow. And the business, Mom. Michael's business. The investors are pulling out. They got calls from someone, some lawyer, saying the company's assets are compromised. It doesn't make sense. None of it makes sense. It's like someone just reached in and turned off our entire lives. I walked to the kitchen and put the kettle on for tea. The old kettle that whistled when it boiled, the one I'd gotten as a wedding gift 50 years ago. Mom? Are you there? I'm here, I said quietly. We need help. We need to figure out what's happening. Can you come over? Or we can come there. We need to. Why would you need my help, Jennifer? Silence. Long enough that I thought the call had dropped. What? I'm just a limited guest, I said. Remember? That's what the badge said. I'm not sure what help I could possibly be. More silence. Then, Mom, this isn't the time for. For what? For remembering how you made me sit in a corner? For remembering how you wouldn't let me eat the food? For remembering how you put a picture of our old house on a stage and called it something you escaped from? The kettle started to whistle. I took it off the burner. We didn't mean. Yes, you did. I was surprised by how calm I sounded. No anger. No tears. Just facts stated plainly. You've meant it for years. You've been embarrassed by me since the day you made your first real money. Since the day you moved into houses with gates and married people who wear watches that cost more than cars. That's not fair. Fair. The word tasted bitter. You want to talk about fair? Jennifer started crying. Not the soft, elegant crying you see in movies. The ugly kind. The kind that makes your nose run and your voice break. Mom, please. I'm scared. Michael's scared. We don't know what to do. Everything we've worked for is just gone. In one night. Gone. I poured hot water over the tea bag in my mug. The same chipped mug I'd used for 20 years. The one that said "World's Best Mom" in faded letters. Where's your husband? I asked. Richard's calling lawyers. Everyone's calling lawyers. But nobody knows anything yet. The holds just went through an hour ago. It's too late to reach anyone who matters. I sat down at my kitchen table. The one with the wobbly leg I'd fixed with folded cardboard. Jennifer, do you know why I lived in this house all these years? This house you were so ashamed of. Mom, I don't. Do you know why I drove that same old car? Why I bought clothes from thrift stores? Why I used coupons and shopped sales and turned off lights to save electricity? She didn't answer. It wasn't because I had to, I said. Not after the first 10 years, anyway. I could hear her breathing change. Confusion mixing with the panic. What are you talking about? Your father died when you were 6 and Michael was 8. You remember that? Of course I remember. What you don't remember is the life insurance. The policy his company gave him. The one that paid out $500,000 when he passed. Silence. $500,000 in 1981, I continued. That's worth over $1 million today. And I didn't spend it. Not on myself. I invested it. The house was so quiet I could hear the clock ticking in the living room. That cheap plastic clock that ran 5 minutes fast. I invested it carefully. Conservatively. With a lawyer your father trusted. And over 40 years, that money grew. And grew. And kept growing. Mom. I lived poor on purpose, Jennifer. Every dollar I didn't spend went into investments. Into properties I bought under LLC names you never heard of. Into stocks and bonds and funds that paid dividends. My tea was getting cold, but I didn't drink it. When you needed $10,000 to start your catering business, where do you think that came from? No answer. When Michael needed his first investment capital, who do you think gave it to him? Still nothing. Every time you needed money for school, for your weddings, for down payments on your first houses, it came from me. From accounts you never knew existed. Because I wanted you to have chances I never got. I wanted you to build lives that didn't require you to choose between electricity and groceries. Jennifer's crying had stopped. Now there was just silence. The kind that feels heavy. So tonight, I said, when you pinned that badge on me and sat me in a corner and served me dry chicken while you ate steak, you weren't humiliating some poor old woman who needed your charity. You were humiliating the person who made everything you have possible. Oh God. Her voice was barely a whisper. The properties you bought? I own the liens. The investments that are pulling out? Those are my investments. The lawyer who's freezing your accounts? He's my lawyer. Has been for 30 years. I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the street light flickered. It had been doing that for months. The city kept saying they'd fix it. Mom, why? Jennifer's voice cracked. Why would you do this? Because you need to learn something I should have taught you a long time ago. What? That money doesn't make you better than people. That success doesn't give you the right to treat others like they're beneath you, and that the people you step on while you're climbing up are the same people who control whether you fall. My phone buzzed. Another call coming through. Michael this time. I have to go, I said. Your brother's calling. Mom, wait. Please. We can fix this. We can apologize. We can. I know you can. The question is whether you will. I ended the call and answered Michael's. What did you do? No hello. No mom. Just anger, pure and sharp. I taught you a lesson. A lesson. He was yelling now. You destroyed us. Do you understand what you've done? My business is ruined. My reputation is ruined. I have investors threatening to sue me. I have employees who won't get paid. I have a badge you made your mother wear. That stopped him. A badge that said limited guest. A table in the corner with no food. A picture of our home that you called something you escaped from. It was just a joke, Mom. Jesus. It was supposed to be funny. Was I laughing? He didn't answer that. Michael, I gave you everything. Not just money. Everything. I gave up dating after your father died because I didn't want you to have a stepfather who might not love you. I gave up going back to school because I needed to work full-time to keep food on the table. I gave up friends and hobbies and any kind of life that wasn't about making sure you and your sister had more than I did. We know that. We appreciate that. No, you don't. If you appreciated it, you wouldn't have treated me the way you did tonight. You would have sat me at the head table. You would have made sure I had the best food. You would have stood on that stage and said, everything I am is because of her. We were going to do that. His voice was desperate now. That was the plan. The badge thing was Jennifer's idea, just for the beginning, just to be funny. We were going to do a big reveal later. We had a whole speech prepared. We were going to give you a check and... A check. I laughed, and it sounded strange to my own ears. Bitter. Old. You were going to give me money? Money that came from my money in the first place. You're not making sense. I'm making perfect sense. For the first time in 50 years, I'm making perfect sense. I could hear voices in the background on his end. Richard, probably. Maybe Jennifer was there now too. What do you want? Michael asked finally. Just tell us what you want and we'll do it. You want us to apologize? We're sorry. You want us to pay you back? We'll pay you back. You want. I want you to understand what it feels like, I said quietly. To be powerless. To be dismissed. To sit in a corner and watch other people enjoy things you're not allowed to have. I want you to spend one night, just one, feeling what I've felt for the last 10 years watching you treat me like I'm nothing. We never. Yes, you did. Not with badges and tables. With tone. With looks. With the way you'd check your watches when I talked too long. With the way you'd change the subject when I mentioned being lonely. With the way you'd visit for an hour on holidays and spend that whole hour on your phones. The line went quiet. I could hear him breathing. Tomorrow morning, I said, you'll both come to my house. Not your houses. Mine. The house you're so ashamed of. And we're going to have a conversation about what happens next. What does happen next? That depends on you. I hung up before he could respond. My tea was cold now. I poured it out and made a fresh cup. The house settled around me with its familiar creaks and groans. The refrigerator hummed. The clock ticked. Outside, a dog barked somewhere down the street. I'd lived in this house through everything. Through my husband's death. Through raising 2 kids alone. Through economic crashes and recessions and medical scares and nights when I didn't know how I'd pay the bills. But I'd never felt more powerful in it than I did right now. My phone lit up with texts. Jennifer. Michael. Richard. Even some numbers I didn't recognize. Probably their friends, trying to figure out what was happening. I turned the phone off. Tomorrow would be soon enough for answers. Tonight, I was going to sit in my shabby house with my thrift store furniture and my cracked linoleum and my cheap plastic clock, and I was going to drink my tea in peace. Because for the first time in decades, my children were the ones who couldn't sleep. They were the ones pacing floors and panicking and wondering how everything could change so fast. And maybe, just maybe, they were starting to understand what I'd felt all those years. Morning came slow and gray. I woke up at 6 like always, even though I'd barely slept. Old habits die hard. 50 years of waking up early for work, for kids, for life, and now my body just does it automatically whether I need to or not. The coffee maker gurgled and hissed while I stood at the kitchen window watching the sun try to break through the clouds. It was going to rain. I could feel it in my knees. That's another thing age gives you, the ability to predict weather through pain. My phone was still off. I'd left it that way on purpose. Whatever fires were burning could burn a little longer. I made eggs and toast. Real butter, not margarine. I'd stopped buying margarine years ago when I learned what was actually in it, but I still remembered the taste. The cheap, plastic taste of making do. At 7:30, I turned my phone back on. 63 messages. 22 missed calls. 5 voicemails. I deleted all of it without reading or listening. Then I called Robert. I was wondering when you'd surface, he said instead of hello. His voice sounded tired. He'd probably been up all night handling whatever fallout came from my 7-word text message. How bad is it? For them? Catastrophic. Every liquid asset is frozen. Every credit line is suspended. The liens on their properties are legitimate and enforceable. And the investors pulling out of Michael's company aren't coming back. Word spreads fast in those circles. I sat down at my kitchen table with my coffee. Can they recover? Eventually. If they're smart about it. If they get good lawyers and do exactly what they're told. But it'll take months. Maybe a year. And they'll lose some things they can't get back. Reputation, mostly. Good. Robert was quiet for a moment. Then, Eleanor, I've known you for 30 years. I helped you build this safety net. I watched you sacrifice everything to give those kids a better life. So I'm not judging what you did last night. God knows they had it coming. But you need to decide what your endgame is here. Revenge? A lesson? Permanent estrangement? Because each of those requires different actions going forward. I watched the steam rise from my coffee. I want them to remember. Remember what? That the people you love aren't disposable. That the people who gave you everything deserve more than corners and badges and leftover chicken. That when you get so high up you can't see the ground anymore, you're bound to fall. Poetic. But what does it mean practically? It means I'm going to give them a choice. They can learn from this and change, and I'll release the holds. Or they can stay the way they are, and I'll make sure what happened last night becomes permanent. Robert sighed. You know they'll choose the first option. People always do when their backs are against the wall. The question is whether they'll mean it. That's what I'm going to find out. We talked for a few more minutes about logistics. About what paperwork would be needed to reverse the freezes. About how long I could legally maintain the liens. About exit strategies and contingency plans. Robert was good at his job. Thorough. Precise. He'd kept my secrets for 3 decades and never once judged me for living small while sitting on enough money to live large. When we hung up, it was 8:15. The doorbell rang at 8:30. I wasn't surprised they were early. Desperate people are always punctual. Through the peephole I could see them. Jennifer and Michael, standing on my sagging porch. No Richard. No spouses at all. Just my 2 children looking like they'd aged 10 years overnight. Jennifer's hair wasn't done. That was the first thing I noticed. My daughter, who never left the house without perfect makeup and perfect hair and perfect clothes, was standing on my porch with her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. No makeup. Dark circles under her eyes that probably matched the ones under mine. Michael looked worse. His shirt was wrinkled. Not fashionably wrinkled, just wrinkled. Like he'd slept in it. Or tried to sleep in it. His face was pale and drawn, and he had that look people get when they've been punched and don't know where the next hit is coming from. I opened the door. Mom, Jennifer started. Come in, I said, stepping aside. They walked in like strangers entering a foreign country. Looking around at the worn furniture, the outdated wallpaper, the carpet with paths worn into it from decades of the same footsteps going to the same places. Sit, I said, gesturing to the couch. They sat close together, like kids who'd done something wrong and were waiting for punishment. I took the chair across from them, the one with the broken spring that dug into your back if you sat wrong. I'd learned to sit just right years ago. Nobody spoke for a long moment. The clock ticked. The refrigerator hummed. Outside, a car drove past. "Do you know what you did?" Michael finally said. His voice was rough, like he'd been yelling or crying or both. "Yes." "Do you know what this could cost us?" "Yes." "Then why?" Jennifer's voice broke on the word. "Why would you destroy everything we've built?" I looked at them. Really looked at them. Not at the successful polished versions they presented to the world, but at them. My babies. The kids I'd rocked to sleep and nursed through fevers and taught to tie their shoes. "Tell me about the badge," I said. They glanced at each other. "It was just," Michael started. "Don't," I interrupted. "Don't say it was just a joke. Don't say it didn't mean anything. Tell me the truth. Whose idea was it?" Jennifer's face crumpled. "Mine." "Why?" "Because." She wiped at her eyes even though she wasn't crying yet. "Because Richard's parents were there. And they're rich. Really rich. Old money rich. And they've always looked down on us for coming from nothing. And I wanted to show them that we'd moved past that. That we weren't like me," I finished. She nodded, and now the tears came. "I wanted them to see that we were successful. That we'd made it. That we weren't poor anymore. So you made me wear a badge that said I was less than everyone else in that room. I thought you'd understand. I thought you'd know it wasn't personal." How could humiliation not be personal? Michael leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. "We messed up, Mom. We know that now. We were trying to impress people who don't matter, and we hurt the person who does. We were wrong. Why did you put me at that table? In the corner?" Another glance between them. This time Michael answered. "The seating chart was tight. We had business contacts we needed to sit with. Politicians. Investors. People who could help us. And I couldn't help you." "That's not." "Yes, it is. That's exactly what you thought. That I was useless to you. Just an obligation. Someone you had to invite because it would look bad if you didn't, but someone you could tuck away where your important people wouldn't have to interact with me." The silence that followed was the kind that hurts. "And the food," I continued. "Who decided I shouldn't eat what everyone else was eating?" Jennifer's voice was barely audible. "The caterer asked if everyone was premium. I said no. I said there was one limited guest." "Why would you say that?" "Because the premium menu was $80 a plate and the limited menu was $20. And we were already over budget. And I thought." She trailed off. "You thought it didn't matter because I wouldn't know the difference. Because I'm used to cheap food." She nodded. I stood up and walked to the kitchen. Pulled out the folder I'd prepared last night while they were panicking. Brought it back to the living room and set it on the coffee table between us. "Open it," I said. Michael reached for it with shaking hands. Opened it. Started reading. I watched his face change as he flipped through pages. Confusion. Shock. Disbelief. "What is this?" he whispered. "Bank statements. Investment portfolios. Property deeds. A complete accounting of everything I own." Jennifer leaned over to look. Her hands went to her mouth. $2.3 million, Michael read aloud. "You have $2.3 million. 2.4 now," I corrected. "Market's been good this month." "How?" Jennifer's voice was high, thin. "How is this possible?" So I told them. All of it. The life insurance. The investments. The careful, patient building of wealth while living like I had nothing. The properties bought through LLCs. The stocks that split and split again. The dividends reinvested. The bonds. The funds. The 40 years of growing money in silence. Every time you needed something, I said, it came from those accounts. Your college funds. Your down payments. Your business startup capital. All of it. But we thought. Michael couldn't finish the sentence. You thought I was poor because I lived like I was poor. Because I wanted you to learn the value of money. Because I didn't want you to grow up entitled and spoiled and thinking success was something owed to you instead of something earned. I sat back down in my chair with the broken spring. Your father died with $50,000 in debt. The life insurance paid that off and left $500,000. I could have used that money to make my life easier. I could have bought a new house, new car, new everything. I could have dated men who had money instead of dying alone. I could have lived. My voice didn't shake. I'd cried all my tears years ago. But I chose to invest it instead. To grow it. To make sure that when you needed something, it would be there. And it was there, every time. Every single time. Jennifer was crying openly now. Michael's eyes were wet too, though he was trying to hide it. So when you pinned that badge on me and sat me in a corner and fed me garbage while you ate steak with people who matter more than me, you weren't just humiliating some poor old woman. You were humiliating the person who's been funding your entire lives. We didn't know, Jennifer sobbed. We didn't know any of this. You should have known that I deserved better anyway. Rich or poor, I'm still your mother. The words hung in the air like smoke. Michael closed the folder carefully, like it was something precious. What happens now? Now, I said, you decide. Decide what? Whether you meant what you said about being sorry. Whether you've learned anything from last night. Whether you're going to change the way you treat people, or whether this was just another performance to get what you want. We're sorry, Mom, Jennifer said. We really are. We'll do anything to make this right. Anything. They both nodded. I stood up and walked to the window. The rain had started. Light, steady. The kind that lasts all day. Then prove it. But proving remorse isn't something you can do with words. It's something you show through action. And the actions I was about to require would test everything they thought they knew about themselves. The rain picked up while we sat there in my living room, creating a rhythm against the windows that filled the silences between words. What do you want us to do? Michael asked finally. I'd thought about this question all night. Lying in my bed in the dark, listening to the house settle, feeling the weight of 50 years pressing down on my chest. Revenge was easy. I'd already taken it. One text message and their whole world collapsed like a house of cards in wind. But revenge was temporary. It felt good for a moment and then left you empty. What I wanted was harder. I want you to spend 1 week living the way I lived. They looked at each other, confused. I don't understand, Jennifer said. I walked to the kitchen and came back with a box. Inside were 2 envelopes. I handed one to each of them. Inside those envelopes is $300 in cash. That's your budget for the week. Food, gas, everything. You can't use your credit cards, your bank accounts, or ask anyone for help. Michael opened his envelope and stared at the bills like they were written in a foreign language. $300, he repeated. For a whole week. That's what I lived on most weeks when you were kids. After rent and utilities, that's what was left. That's impossible, Jennifer said. No, it's not. It's just hard. You buy the cheapest food. You skip meals sometimes. You don't go out. You don't buy anything that isn't absolutely necessary. You make choices every day between things you need and things you want. For how long? Michael's voice was small. 1 week. 7 days. You'll move back into this house, into your old rooms. You'll eat what I cook. You'll live by my rules. No phones except for emergencies. No computers. No contact with your old lives. We can't just disappear, Jennifer protested. We have responsibilities. Jobs. Richard will. Richard will survive without you for a week. So will your jobs. I already spoke to Robert. He's prepared temporary leave paperwork for both of you citing a family emergency. This is crazy, Michael said, but his voice lacked conviction. This is the deal. 1 week living like I lived, and I'll release all the freezes. You'll get your money back, your properties, everything. Or you can refuse, and I'll make last night permanent. You can spend the next year fighting in court, draining what's left of your resources on lawyers who'll tell you that everything I did was perfectly legal. The rain got harder. Thunder rumbled somewhere far off. Jennifer set her envelope on the coffee table like it might bite her. What about our families? Our spouses? They can visit on Sunday. That's 6 days from now. Until then, it's just us. The way it was for 10 years after your father died. Michael stood up and walked to the window, his back to me. His shoulders were tight, defensive. You're punishing us. No. I'm teaching you. There's a difference. How? Punishment is about making you suffer. Teaching is about making you understand. I stayed in my chair with the broken spring. When you were 8 years old, Michael, you stole a candy bar from the grocery store. Do you remember what I did? He turned around slowly. You made me go back and apologize to the manager. And pay for it with your allowance. And you never stole again, did you? He shook his head. That wasn't punishment. That was teaching you that actions have consequences. That other people's property matters. That integrity costs something. I looked at both of them. This is the same thing. You humiliated me because you didn't understand what it felt like. So now you're going to learn. Jennifer picked up the envelope again, held it in both hands. And if we say no? Then you say no. I'm not going to force you. But the consequences of saying no are permanent. No more help from me. No more safety net. You'll build your lives back from scratch, completely on your own. That's not fair, Michael said. You can't just cut us off. Why not? You cut me off years ago. You just didn't call it that. You called it being busy. Being successful. Moving on with your lives. The words hit like I knew they would. I could see them land, could see the way my children flinched. We visited, Jennifer said weakly. Twice a year. Christmas and my birthday. An hour each time. Sometimes less if you had somewhere more important to be. We called. Once a month. Usually in the car on your way somewhere else. I could always hear the turn signal clicking, the radio in the background. I was something you checked off your list between meetings. Michael came back to the couch and sat down hard. God, Mom. When you say it like that. I'm just telling you the truth. The truth you couldn't see because you were too far away to notice. Too high up. Too successful. The clock ticked. The rain drummed. My coffee had gone cold, but I didn't get up to make more. What exactly would this week look like? Jennifer asked quietly. You'd move in today. Bring 1 suitcase each, nothing expensive. Clothes from Goodwill if you have them. If not, we'll go shopping together at the thrift store. You'll have chores. Cooking, cleaning, yard work. The things I did while also working full-time and raising you. We both have to do it? Michael asked. Both or neither? You're a team. You were a team growing up. You'll be a team now. They looked at each other. Some silent conversation passing between them that only siblings can have. Years of history in a glance. What about work? Michael pressed. I have a company falling apart. Employees who need me. Your company fell apart yesterday. 1 more week won't change that. And your employees will be fine. You have managers. Let them manage. It's not that simple. It never is. But sometimes you have to choose between your business and your family. I had to make that choice every day for 10 years. Business always lost. Jennifer wiped her eyes. What do we tell Richard? Tell our friends. The truth. That you're spending a week with your mother. That there's been a family situation that needs attention. They don't need details. They'll ask questions. Let them ask. You don't owe anyone explanations for how you spend your time with your family. Thunder cracked closer now. The lights flickered but stayed on. My electrical was old, but it was stubborn. Like me. And at the end of the week? Michael asked. If we do this, if we make it through, everything goes back to normal? Not normal. Better. You get your assets back, but you don't get the same relationship with me. That has to be rebuilt. Earned. This week is just the first step. How many steps are there? As many as it takes. Jennifer's phone buzzed in her purse. She reached for it automatically, then stopped. Looked at me. Emergency calls only, I reminded her. She left the phone in her purse. I could see how hard that was for her. How her fingers twitched. How her eyes kept darting to the bag like it was calling to her. That was addiction. Not to drugs or alcohol, but to connection. To status. To the constant validation of messages and calls and social media telling you that you matter. I'd lived without that validation for years. They were about to learn how. Okay, Michael said suddenly. We'll do it. Jennifer's head snapped toward him. Michael. We'll do it, he repeated, looking at his sister. We don't have a choice, Jen. And even if we did, we owe her this. We owe her a lot more than this. Jennifer's face worked through several emotions. Fear. Anger. Resignation. Finally, she nodded. Okay. Yes. We'll do it. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. Good. Go home. Pack your bags. Be back here by 3 o'clock. And Jennifer. Yes. Leave the designer clothes at home. Bring things you wouldn't mind getting dirty. They stood up together. Michael picked up the envelope of cash and stared at it like it was a puzzle he couldn't solve. Jennifer clutched hers to her chest. At the door, Michael turned back. Mom, can I ask you something? Go ahead. Why didn't you ever tell us? About the money? About what you'd built? I thought about that question. I'd asked it to myself 1,000 times over the years. Because I wanted you to be hungry. Not for food, but for success. For achievement. If you'd known I had millions, you would have relaxed. You would have thought you had a safety net so big you could never fall through it. We had a safety net, Jennifer said quietly. We just didn't know it was there. Exactly. You built your lives thinking you were doing it alone. That every success was yours, every failure would be yours too. That made you work harder. Made you careful. Made you strong. It made us forget where we came from, Michael said. Yes. It did that too. They left without another word. I watched through the window as they got into their expensive cars and drove away. Michael's Mercedes and Jennifer's Range Rover, both probably worth more than this house. In 7 days, those cars would feel like spaceships from another world. I cleaned up the coffee cups and the folder and the evidence of the morning's confrontation. Then I went to their old bedrooms and started preparing. Jennifer's room still had her twin bed with the pink comforter I'd sewn myself. The dresser with the drawer that stuck. The window that didn't quite close all the way and let in cold air in winter. Michael's room had his old posters on the walls. Basketball players and cars and bands from the 90s. His bookshelf still held his high school yearbooks and the participation trophies from Little League. I stripped both beds and put on fresh sheets. The same cheap cotton ones I'd always bought, rough and thin from too many washings. I made sure the rooms were clean but not comfortable. This wasn't a hotel. This was a lesson. In the kitchen, I took stock of what I had. Some chicken, rice, beans, pasta, vegetables that needed using. I could make the food stretch for a week if I was careful. If I cooked the way I used to cook, making everything from scratch, wasting nothing. The phone rang at 1 o'clock. Robert. They just called me, he said. Both of them. Separately. Asking if this is legal, if they can fight it, if there's any way around it. What did you tell them? That everything you've done is legal. That fighting it would cost them more than cooperating. And that their mother is a lot smarter than they ever gave her credit for. I smiled. Thank you. Eleanor, are you sure about this? A week is a long time for people used to their lifestyle. They might break. They might resent you more than they already do. They might. But they also might learn something. And if they don't? Then at least I'll know I tried. That's more than I've done in years. We hung up, and I went back to preparing. At 2:30, I heard cars in the driveway. Not the expensive ones they'd left in. A taxi. They'd actually left their cars behind. That was something. I opened the door before they could knock. They stood there with suitcases. Not designer luggage, just regular suitcases that had seen better days. Jennifer's hair was still in a ponytail. Michael wore jeans and a plain t-shirt. "Come in," I said. They came in, carrying their bags like refugees arriving at a shelter. "Rooms are ready," I told them. "Same rooms you had growing up. Put your things away. Then come to the kitchen. We're going to make dinner together." "What are we making?" Jennifer asked. "Chicken and rice. Vegetables. Basic food. Food that costs $3 to make and feeds 3 people." $3. Michael repeated. "For a whole meal? You'd be surprised what you can do with $3 when you have to." They went to their rooms. I heard their footsteps on the stairs, the same stairs that creaked in the same places they'd always creaked. The sound of doors opening and closing. The house settling around them like it remembered them. In the kitchen, I pulled out the chicken and the rice and the vegetables. Got out the cutting board and knives. Set 3 stations at the counter. When they came down, I handed them each an apron. Old ones, stained and worn. "Michael, you're on vegetables. Wash them, cut them small. Jennifer, you're on rice. Measure 2 cups, rinse it 3 times, then cook it with 4 cups of water. I'll handle the chicken." We worked in silence for a while. The sound of water running, knives on cutting boards, the gas stove clicking to life. "I haven't cooked in months," Jennifer said quietly. "We have a chef who comes 3 times a week." "I know. You mentioned it last Christmas." It seemed normal then. Now it seems wasteful. I offered. I was going to say embarrassing. The chicken sizzled when I put it in the pan. The smell filled the kitchen, warm and familiar. The smell of 1,000 dinners from their childhood. "When you were kids," I said, "we ate chicken and rice at least twice a week. Do you remember why?" "Because it was cheap," Michael answered. "Because it was versatile. I could make it 10 different ways, and you'd eat it every time. Add some soy sauce, it's Asian. Add some salsa, it's Mexican. Add some herbs, it's fancy. Same basic ingredients, different experiences." "That's actually smart," Jennifer said, surprising herself. "Poverty makes you creative. When you can't afford variety, you create it." The rice boiled. The vegetables sizzled. The chicken browned and sent up steam that fogged the windows. By the time we sat down to eat, it was dark outside. The rain had stopped, leaving everything clean and wet. I said grace. Something I hadn't done in years, but something I used to do every night when they were small. For food, for family, for the lessons we learn, we give thanks. They echoed, amen, their voices uncertain, like they'd forgotten the rhythm. We ate in silence at first. Then Jennifer spoke. "This is good, Mom. Really good. It's the same chicken and rice you ate growing up." "I know. But I'd forgotten what it tasted like. We eat at restaurants where they put gold on the food and charge $300 a plate, and it doesn't taste like this. That's because this was made with love instead of spectacle." Michael looked up from his plate. "Is that what we became? Spectacle?" "Sometimes. Not always, but sometimes. You got so focused on impressing people that you forgot what actually matters." "And what matters?" he asked. I set down my fork and looked at both of them. My children. My babies who'd grown into strangers who were slowly, maybe, becoming my children again. This. Right here. Sitting at a table together. Eating food we made with our own hands. Talking without phones or distractions or other people. Just family. Just us. Jennifer's eyes filled with tears again. She cried more now in one day than I'd seen in 10 years. "I'm sorry, Mom," she whispered. "For all of it. For the badge and the table and the chicken that tasted like cardboard. But mostly for forgetting this. For forgetting how good simple things can be." "I'm sorry too," Michael added. "For being too busy. For checking my watch when you talked. For treating success like it was more important than you." I reached across the table and took both their hands. Mine were wrinkled and spotted with age. Theirs were smooth and soft, unmarked by years of hard work. But they were still the same hands I'd held when they were babies. When they were children learning to walk. When they were teenagers breaking curfew. When they were adults who'd forgotten where they came from. "This week," I said, "we start over. We remember what we forgot. And maybe, if we're lucky, we become a family again. They squeezed my hands. Outside, the clouds cleared and stars appeared. The same stars that had watched over us for 50 years. And somewhere in that moment, between the chicken and rice and the tears and the apologies, something shifted. Something broken started to mend. It would take more than one meal, more than 1 week, more than one conversation. But it was a beginning. And after years of endings, a beginning was everything. Day 2 started with a scream. I was already awake, sitting at the kitchen table with my coffee, when I heard Jennifer's voice from upstairs. Not a scared scream. An angry one. She came thundering down the stairs in her pajamas, holding her phone like it was evidence in a trial. Mom, the hot water ran out. I was in the shower and it just went cold. Ice cold. I took a sip of my coffee. The water heater only holds 30 gallons. Michael showered first, so there wasn't enough left for you. So what am I supposed to do? Wait 20 minutes for it to heat up again. Or take a cold shower. I took cold showers for years when money was tight and I couldn't afford to run the heater as much. She stared at me like I'd suggested she swim with sharks. Michael appeared in the doorway, his hair still damp. He at least had the decency to look guilty. Sorry, Jen. I didn't know there was a limit. There's always a limit, I said. When you're poor, everything has a limit. Hot water. Electricity. Food. Time. You learn to share or you learn to fight. Usually both. Jennifer stomped back upstairs. I heard the bathroom door slam. Michael sat down across from me. His face was drawn, tired. I didn't sleep much. The bed. The quiet, everything. Our house has white noise machines and blackout curtains and a mattress that cost $8,000. Here I could hear every sound. The house settling. Cars outside. My own thoughts. You get used to it. How long did it take you? To get used to the noise? About a week. To get used to everything else? I'm still working on it. He picked at a scratch on the table. The same table where he'd done homework 25 years ago. I called Richard last night. Used my emergency call. And he thinks I'm crazy. He thinks you're crazy. He said I should just hire lawyers and fight this whole thing. What did you tell him? That I deserved it. That we both did. He didn't understand. Will he? Michael looked up at me. I don't think so. Richard's never been poor. His parents paid for everything. College, his first car, the down payment on his first house. He's never had to choose between eating and paying bills. And you have? No. But I watched you do it. I just didn't understand what I was watching until now. Jennifer came back down, her hair wet but combed. She'd waited for the hot water. Small victory. What's for breakfast? She asked. Oatmeal. There's brown sugar and raisins if you want them. Do we have any fruit? An apple. We can split it 3 ways. 1 apple for 3 people. It's what I have. If you want more, you can go to the store. But remember your budget. You've already spent $40 between the 2 of you. Michael pulled out his envelope and counted. How did we spend $40? We just got here yesterday. Gas for the taxi. $20 each. That's how money disappears when you're not paying attention. A little here, a little there, and suddenly you're broke. They ate their oatmeal in silence. I could see them doing math in their heads. $260 left. 6 days to go. $43 per day. Except it didn't work that way. Some days you spent nothing. Other days the car broke down or someone got sick or the electric bill came due. After breakfast, I handed them a list. What's this? Jennifer asked. Chores. Michael, you're mowing the lawn. The mower's in the garage. It's a push mower, not electric, so it takes some muscle. Jennifer, you're cleaning the bathrooms. Supplies are under the sink. Mom, I haven't cleaned a bathroom in 5 years. Then you're out of practice. We have people who do this. I know. I was one of those people. I cleaned houses for 3 years when you were in elementary school. 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, scrubbing toilets and mopping floors for $12 an hour. The number hit them like a slap. $12 an hour. They probably spent more than that on coffee every morning. Why didn't you tell us? Michael asked. Because I didn't want you to be ashamed. I wanted you to think I had a regular job, a respectable job. So I told you I worked in an office. And I did, eventually. But first I cleaned toilets. Jennifer picked up the bathroom cleaner and the scrub brush. She looked at them like they were alien technology. They worked all morning. I could hear Michael outside, struggling with the mower. It hadn't been used in months, and the grass was thick. He'd stop and start, stop and start. Once I heard him swear loudly enough that the neighbor's dog barked. Jennifer was quieter. Just the sound of scrubbing. The toilet brush against porcelain. The spray bottle hissing. The fan running. At noon, they came back inside sweating and exhausted. How do you feel? I asked. Tired, Michael said. Disgusting, Jennifer added. There was hair in the drain that made me want to throw up. That's honest work. That's what most of the world does every day. They come home tired and disgusting and do it again tomorrow. I need a shower, Jennifer said. So does Michael. But there's only enough hot water for one of you. So you'll have to decide who showers now and who waits. They looked at each other. Some silent negotiation happening. You go, Michael said finally. I'll wait. Jennifer smiled. Small. Grateful. Thanks. It was the first kind thing I'd heard them say to each other in 2 days. While Jennifer showered, Michael and I sat on the back porch. The yard looked better. Not perfect, but better. He'd left some patches uneven, missed some spots along the fence. But he'd tried. Your father used to mow this lawn every Saturday, I said. He'd be out here in his old jeans and no shirt, pushing that same mower. You'd follow him around with a plastic one, pretending to help. I remember. He'd let me catch the grass clippings. You loved that. You'd pile them up and jump in them like leaves. We sat quiet for a while. Birds sang. A plane passed overhead. Mom, can I ask you something personal? Go ahead. Did you ever think about dating again? After Dad died? The question surprised me. Sometimes. There were a few men over the years who asked. Nice men. Men who might have made good stepfathers. Why didn't you? Because I was afraid. Afraid they wouldn't love you like I did. Afraid they'd treat you differently. Afraid I'd have to choose between them and you'd always win. That must have been lonely. It was. But loneliness is better than regret. Michael wiped his eyes. We should have visited more. Called more. Been there more. Yes. You should have. Can we make up for it? I don't know yet. Ask me in 5 days. We had sandwiches for lunch. Peanut butter and jelly. The cheap jelly that's more corn syrup than fruit. Michael ate his in 4 bites. Jennifer picked at hers. I forgot how much I loved these, Michael said. Me too, Jennifer admitted. Richard thinks peanut butter is peasant food. He won't have it in the house. Richard sounds like an ass, Michael said. Jennifer didn't argue. That afternoon, I took them to Goodwill. They needed to see where I'd bought their clothes for years. Where I'd furnished this house. Where I'd found treasures among trash. The store smelled like old fabric and dust. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Racks of clothes stretched out like a maze. Find something you like, I said. You each get to pick one item. Under $5. They wandered the racks like tourists in a foreign country. Touching things carefully. Making faces at stains and worn spots. Jennifer found a sweater. Blue, slightly pilled. $3. Is this okay? Do you like it? I think so. It's soft. Then it's okay. Michael found a book. Some thriller from 10 years ago, dog-eared and marked up. $2. I haven't read for pleasure in years. Just business books and reports. What happened to the boy who read fantasy novels under his covers with a flashlight? He got busy. He forgot. Maybe it's time to remember. At the register, Jennifer paid with a $5 bill from her envelope. The cashier gave her back 2 singles. Can you believe we used to shop here all the time? Jennifer whispered as we walked out. You didn't shop here. I did. You wore what I brought home and never asked where it came from. I'm asking now. Now's a good time to start. That night, we made spaghetti. A box of pasta, a jar of sauce, nothing fancy. But we ate it at the table together again, and that was something. Tomorrow, I said, we're going to the food bank. The food bank? Michael repeated. Why? Because I want you to see where I got food when money ran out. Because I want you to stand in line with people who have nothing and remember that you're one bad month away from being them. We're not, Jennifer started. You are. Everyone is. Wealth is temporary. One medical emergency, one lawsuit, one market crash, and everything disappears. The only thing that lasts is how you treat people on your way up, because those are the same people you'll meet on your way down. They didn't argue. After dinner, we watched TV. Not cable, not streaming. Just the local channels that came through the antenna. A game show. The news. A sitcom from the 90s. Jennifer fell asleep on the couch, her head on Michael's shoulder. He stayed still so he wouldn't wake her. I covered them with a blanket. The same blanket I'd covered them with when they were children and fell asleep in front of the TV on Friday nights. Some things, I realized, never really change. They just get forgotten and then remembered. And maybe that was enough. But tomorrow would bring the hardest test yet. Because seeing poverty from the outside is one thing. Standing in it, surrounded by it, becoming part of it, even for a moment, is something else entirely. Would my children pass? Or would they break? The food bank opened at 9. We got there at 8:30, and there were already 40 people in line. Jennifer stared. How long have they been waiting? Some of them probably got here at 7. Maybe earlier. You wait because you have to. Because food at home ran out yesterday or the day before, and your kids are hungry. The line was mostly women. Some with children. Some elderly. Some who looked like they'd been beautiful once, before life wore them down. Men too, standing quiet with their hands in their pockets, shoulders hunched like they were trying to take up less space in the world. We took our place at the end of the line. Don't we need to register or something? Michael asked. I already did. Years ago. My name's still in the system. You came here. Twice a month for 3 years. When you were 8 and 10. When my hours got cut at work and the bills didn't. When choosing between electricity and food was a real decision I had to make. Jennifer looked at the people in front of us. A woman with 3 kids, all under 6. An old man with a cane. A young couple who couldn't be more than 20, holding hands like that was the only thing keeping them standing. I didn't know, she whispered. I know you didn't. I made sure you didn't. The line moved slowly. 5 minutes. 10. 15. A van pulled up and volunteers started unloading boxes. The people in line perked up, watching. Hoping for fresh produce, for meat, for anything beyond canned goods and stale bread. Mom, Michael said quietly. That woman 2 people ahead. Is she crying? I looked. She was. Silent tears running down her face while her children tugged at her coat. Probably relieved, I said. Probably scared. Probably exhausted. All of it at once. Should we do something? Like what? Give her money? That's charity. She doesn't want charity. She wants dignity. She wants to feed her kids without crying about it. The best thing you can do is treat her like she's invisible, because that's what she wants right now. To be invisible. We moved forward. Closer to the door. Closer to the tables where volunteers were setting up. A man in a suit walked past the line. Nice suit. Expensive. He was carrying a clipboard and talking on a phone. Probably with the organization that ran the food bank. He didn't look at the line. Not once. Just walked past like we were furniture. That's how people looked at you yesterday, I said to Michael. At that party. When they walked past your table without seeing you. Michael's jaw tightened. It feels different when you're the one being ignored. Everything feels different when you're the one living it. Finally, we reached the front. A volunteer, maybe 60, with kind eyes and worn hands, greeted us. Name: Eleanor Crawford. She checked her list. It's been a while, Eleanor. Good to see you. Good to be seen. She smiled at that. One family bag or two? One's fine. These your kids? Yes. They're grown now. Last time I saw them they were babies. She looked at Jennifer and Michael. Your mama's a good woman. She came here with her head up when others came with their heads down. Always said thank you. Always asked about my day. You remember that? We will, Jennifer said, her voice thick. The volunteer handed us a bag. Brown paper, heavy. Inside I could see canned vegetables, rice, pasta, peanut butter, some apples that had seen better days. There's a chicken in the bottom, she said. Frozen. Should be good for a few meals. Thank you. You take care now. We walked out past the line that was even longer now. 50 people. 60. The number kept growing. In the car, neither of my children spoke for several minutes. Then Jennifer said, we threw away food. What? At home. At our house. We'd make too much and throw away what we didn't eat. Or buy groceries and let them go bad because we ate out. Or order takeout and throw away the leftovers because we didn't like them anymore. I know. How much food do you think we wasted? Probably enough to feed every person in that line for a week. She put her head in her hands. God. Michael was gripping the steering wheel even though we weren't moving yet. That volunteer. She remembered you. From years ago. People remember kindness. Even small kindnesses. Especially when they're surrounded by people who look through them. Is that what we did? Look through people. Sometimes. Not everyone. Not intentionally. But when you're rich, poor people become scenery. Background noise. You stop seeing them as people with stories and start seeing them as problems to avoid. We drove home in silence. The bag of groceries sat in the back seat like a passenger. At home, we unpacked the bag together. Everything had a place. The canned goods in the cabinet. The rice in the pantry. The chicken in the freezer. This is everything we're eating this week? Michael asked. This and what we already had. If we're smart about it, it's enough. And if we're not smart? Then we go hungry until next week. They looked at the food spread on the counter. It didn't look like much. Because it wasn't much. But it was something. I want to go back, Jennifer said suddenly. To the food bank? Yes. Not to get food. To volunteer. To be on the other side. To help instead of just take. Why? Because that volunteer was kind to you. Years later, she still remembered. I want to be someone people remember for kindness instead of for badges and corner tables. I put my hand on her shoulder. Then we'll go back. After this week. Together. That afternoon, Michael's phone rang. Emergency calls only, but he answered anyway. It was his business partner. I could hear the voice on the other end, loud and angry. I don't care what your family emergency is. We have clients pulling out. We have employees quitting. We have a company falling apart and you're not here. Michael listened, his face pale. I understand. But I can't come back yet. Can't or won't? Both. Then you're done. I'm buying you out. Consider this your notice. You can't do that. We have contracts. We have a clause for abandonment. You abandoned your company. I'm invoking it. Expect papers from my lawyer tomorrow. The call ended. Michael stood there holding his phone like it might explode. He can't do that, he said to no one. He can't just take my company. Yes, he can, I said. I looked at your partnership agreement. If one partner is absent for more than 5 consecutive business days, the other can invoke a buyout. You're on day 3. You looked at my agreement? I look at everything. I've been looking at your business for 5 years, Michael. I know more about it than you think. Why didn't you tell me about that clause? Would you have listened? He didn't answer. Because we both knew the truth. So that's it, he said, sitting down hard. Everything I built is gone. Not gone. Bought out. You'll get money. Not as much as if you'd sold under better circumstances, but something. I don't want money. I want my company. Why? Because you built it? Or because it made you important? He looked at me. Really looked. I don't know anymore. Jennifer came into the kitchen. She'd heard everything. Michael, I'm sorry. Are you? Because part of me thinks you're glad. That we're both losing everything. That Mom's teaching us a lesson by destroying our lives. Michael, I started. No. I need to say this. He stood up, facing me. You want us to understand poverty? Fine. We're understanding it. You want us to know what sacrifice feels like? We're learning. But this. He gestured at the phone. This is permanent. You're not just teaching us a lesson. You're punishing us. And maybe we deserve it. But where does it end? When are we punished enough? The kitchen went silent except for the clock ticking. It ends when you understand, I said quietly. Understand what? That everything you lost can be rebuilt. Money. Businesses. Reputations. All of it. But the years you didn't visit me? The holidays you cut short? The calls you didn't return? Those can't be rebuilt. They're gone. So yes, you're losing things this week. Temporary things. Things that don't matter nearly as much as you think they do. And maybe after losing them, you'll understand what I lost. And maybe then we can start over. Michael's eyes filled with tears. He didn't wipe them away. Just let them fall. I'm sorry, he said. For all of it. I'm sorry. Jennifer moved to him. Hugged him. They stood there together, my children, holding each other the way they used to when they were scared. I turned away to give them privacy. Started making dinner even though it was only 3 o'clock. Needed something to do with my hands. Behind me, I heard them crying. Both of them. Not the elegant crying of people who've never really suffered. But the ugly gasping crying of people realizing how much they've lost and how much of it was their own fault. I let them cry. Tears were part of the lesson too. Later, we ate dinner in silence. Pasta again, different sauce. Bread I'd made yesterday. Water to drink because soda was too expensive. 4 more days, Jennifer said. 4 more days, I agreed. Then what? Then you go home. Back to your lives. Back to your houses and your husbands and your world. But different, Michael said. I hope so. Mom, Jennifer said. After this week. Can we still see you? Really see you? I'm not going anywhere. That's not what I mean. Can we have Sunday dinners here? Can we help you fix the porch light and the crack in the floor and all the things we should have helped with years ago? Can we be a family again? I looked at both of them. My babies. My adults. My children who were finally, maybe, learning. Yes, I said. We can be a family again. And for the first time in 10 years, I believed it. Not because they said the right words, but because I saw something in their eyes I hadn't seen in a long time. Understanding. Real understanding. The kind that only comes from walking in someone else's worn-out shoes. Chapter 8. Day 4 started with a knock on the door at 6 in the morning. I was already up. Old habits. But Michael and Jennifer were still asleep upstairs. The knock came again. Louder. I opened the door to find Richard standing there. Jennifer's husband. He looked like he hadn't slept. His expensive shirt was wrinkled. His hair was a mess. And his face was red with anger. Where is she? He demanded. She's asleep. Wake her up. We're leaving. No, you're not. He tried to push past me. I blocked the doorway. All 5 foot 3 inches of me, blocking 6 feet of entitled rage. Get out of my way, Eleanor. It's Mrs. Crawford to you. And no. I'm her husband. She needs to come home. This is ridiculous. What's ridiculous is you showing up at 6 in the morning without calling first. She's not answering her phone. Because she's not supposed to. Emergency calls only. Are you an emergency, Richard? His jaw worked. Our house alarm went off last night. She's the only one who knows the code to reset it. I've been dealing with the security company for 6 hours. That sounds hard. It is hard. And she needs to come home and fix it. Or you could learn the code yourself. Have you tried looking in the manual? I don't know where the manual is. Then you have a different problem. Behind me, I heard footsteps on the stairs. Jennifer appeared, still in her pajamas, her eyes puffy from sleep. Richard? What are you doing here? He pushed past me finally, went straight to her. Pack your things. We're leaving. This has gone on long enough. I can't. I made a commitment. A commitment to what? To punishing yourself? To living in squalor with your mother who's clearly having some kind of breakdown. She's not having a breakdown. Then what do you call freezing our accounts and forcing you to live like a homeless person? I call it teaching me a lesson I should have learned 20 years ago. Richard grabbed her arm. Not hard, but firm. Possessive. Jennifer, listen to me. Your mother is manipulating you. This is elder abuse in reverse. She's using financial control to force you into some sick experiment. Let go of my daughter. My voice was quiet but sharp. He didn't let go. Stay out of this, Eleanor. Let go. Michael appeared at the top of the stairs. She told you to let go. Richard looked up at him. This doesn't concern you. She's my sister. It concerns me plenty. Richard released Jennifer's arm. Stepped back. Fine. Jennifer, you have a choice. Come home with me now, or I'm filing for separation. The room went silent. Jennifer stared at him. You're giving me an ultimatum? You're making me choose between you and my family. I'm making you choose between reality and whatever delusional game this is. This isn't a game. This is me learning who I actually am instead of who I pretended to be. You're a successful businesswoman with a life people would kill for. That's who you are. No. That's who I was pretending to be. I'm the daughter of a woman who scrubbed toilets so I could go to college. I'm someone who forgot where she came from and treated the person who gave her everything like garbage. So this is guilt. This is Catholic guilt or whatever, and you're punishing yourself. I'm not punishing myself. I'm learning. There's a difference. Richard looked at me. This is your fault. You poisoned her against me. I haven't said a word about you, Richard. But I don't need to. You're doing a fine job of showing her who you are all by yourself. His face went darker. You're a spiteful old woman who can't stand to see her children succeed. You're jealous of what they've built, so you're tearing it down. Michael came down the stairs. Time for you to leave. I'm not going anywhere without my wife. Then you're not going anywhere, because she's staying. The two men faced each other. Richard was taller, younger, better fed. But Michael had something Richard didn't. He'd spent 3 days learning what mattered. And it wasn't height or youth or money. Jennifer, Richard said, not breaking eye contact with Michael. Last chance. Come home or I'm done. Then you're done. The words hung in the air like smoke. Richard finally looked at her. Really looked. You're choosing this? Choosing her. I'm choosing me. The real me. Not the version you wanted me to be. He stood there for a long moment. Then he turned and walked out. Didn't slam the door. Just left it open behind him like he was too important to close doors. I closed it quietly. Jennifer sat down on the couch. She wasn't crying. She was just staring at her hands. I think my marriage is over, she said. Maybe, I agreed. Or maybe he'll realize what he's losing and change. People do that sometimes. When they think they're about to lose something that matters. Did Dad ever give you an ultimatum? The question surprised me. Once. When you were 2 and Michael was 4. He got a job offer in California. Good money. Better than what he was making. But it meant leaving my mother, who was sick. He said we had to go, that it was too good to pass up. What did you do? I told him to go if he wanted. That I'd stay here with my mother and the kids. That he could send money and visit when he could. What did he say? He turned down the job. Said no amount of money was worth losing his family. And we never talked about it again. Jennifer looked up. That's why you loved him. That's one reason. There were 1,000 others. But yes, that's a big one. Michael sat down next to his sister. I'm proud of you, Jen. For what? Ruining my marriage. For choosing what's right over what's easy. They sat together while I made coffee. 3 cups. Black, because we were out of milk and buying more wasn't in the budget. Richard's appearance had shaken something loose. Some final piece of the old Jennifer breaking away. What do we do now? She asked. We keep going, I said. 3 more days. We finish what we started. And then we see what's left. What's worth keeping. What needs to be rebuilt from scratch. We spent the morning quietly. No big chores. Just existing together. Michael read his book. Jennifer sketched on a notepad she'd found in a drawer. I worked on the crossword from yesterday's newspaper. At noon, Jennifer's phone rang. Emergency calls only. She looked at the screen. It's Richard. Your choice whether to answer. She let it ring. Once. Twice. On the 3rd ring, she answered. Hello? I couldn't hear what he said. Just watched Jennifer's face. It didn't change much. Stayed neutral. Tired. I understand, she said finally. But I'm not coming home yet. 3 more days, like I committed to. If you can't wait 3 days, then you have your answer about whether this marriage was ever going to work. More talking on his end. No, Richard. You listen. I love you. But I won't let you make me choose between loving you and respecting myself. If those are mutually exclusive, then we have bigger problems than 3 days apart. She hung up. What did he say? Michael asked. That I'm being manipulated. That Mom's using psychological warfare. That I'm having a breakdown and need therapy. Do you think you're having a breakdown? I asked. She considered that. No. I think I'm having a breakthrough. Finally understanding things I should have understood years ago. That feels like the opposite of a breakdown. Richard won't see it that way. I know. And that's his problem, not mine. We had soup for lunch. Canned tomato soup with grilled cheese sandwiches. Michael made the sandwiches. He burned the first 2, got the 3rd one perfect. It's been 15 years since I cooked anything, he said, staring at the sandwich like it was a miracle. Why'd you stop? I asked. Got busy. Got successful. Started eating out every meal. Breakfast meetings, lunch meetings, dinner with clients. I haven't eaten at home in months. Do you miss it? I didn't think I did. But yeah, I miss this. Making something with my hands. Sitting down to eat it. Not rushing. Not networking. Just eating. Jennifer finished her soup. Mom, can I ask you something personal? Go ahead. Do you regret it? All of it? Staying here, living small, giving everything to us. I thought about that question. I'd asked it to myself 1,000 times over the years. I regret that you didn't appreciate it. That you took it for granted. That you grew up thinking sacrifice was normal and love was something you could ignore. But do I regret doing it? No. Because you're still here. Both of you. You came back. That's more than a lot of parents get. We should have come back sooner. Yes. You should have. But you're here now. That counts for something. The afternoon was quiet. No emergencies. No ultimatums. Just time passing slowly like it used to. At dinner, Michael's phone rang. His business partner again. Michael looked at me. Should I answer? Your choice. He answered. Put it on speaker. I'm faxing over the buyout paperwork, the voice said. No hello. Just business. You have 48 hours to review and sign. If you don't, I'm proceeding with the abandonment clause and you get nothing. How much is the buyout? 300,000. That's generous considering you walked away. Michael had put in 800,000 over 5 years. Plus countless hours. $300,000 was an insult. I'll have my lawyer review it. You have a lawyer now? Interesting. Because 24 hours ago you were ghosting everyone. Things change. They sure do. The call ended. Michael set the phone down carefully. $300,000. For a company worth $3 million. What are you going to do? Jennifer asked. I don't know. Part of me wants to fight it. Sue him. Make him pay. And the other part? I asked. The other part thinks maybe it's time to let it go. That company was killing me. 16-hour days. No weekends. No life. Just work and money and more work. Maybe this is the universe telling me to start over. Can you start over at 43? He smiled. I guess we're about to find out. That night, after they'd gone to bed, I sat on the porch in the dark. The light was still out. The stars were bright. My phone buzzed. A text from Robert. Their accounts will be unfrozen Monday morning. Properties released. Everything back to normal. Or as normal as it can be after what they've learned. I hope it was worth it, Eleanor. I typed back, me too. The week was almost over. Soon they'd go back to their lives. To houses with hot water that never ran out. To marriages that might survive or might not. To businesses that existed or didn't. But they'd be different. I could see it in their eyes. In the way they looked at food. At water. At each other. They'd be different, and maybe that was enough. Because 3 days can change everything if you're paying attention. 3 days can teach you what 50 years couldn't. 3 days can save you or break you. And my children were finally learning which one they wanted to be. The sun was setting on day 6 when everything fell apart. We were making dinner together. Spaghetti again, because the food was running low and pasta was cheap. Jennifer was stirring sauce. Michael was draining noodles in the old colander. I was setting the table. The doorbell rang. Through the window, I could see 2 people I didn't recognize. A man and a woman in business clothes. Serious faces. I opened the door. Eleanor Crawford, the woman asked. Yes. I'm Detective Sarah Martinez. This is my partner, Detective Chun. We need to speak with you about a financial matter. My heart dropped. What kind of financial matter? May we come in? I stepped aside. They walked in, taking in the shabby furniture, the worn carpet, everything that screamed poverty. Michael and Jennifer came out of the kitchen. What's going on? Michael asked. Detective Martinez looked at her notes. We're investigating a complaint filed by Richard Thornton. He's alleging elder financial abuse and coercion. That's ridiculous, Jennifer said immediately. Is it? Mr. Thornton claims that Mrs. Crawford has used financial manipulation to force you and your brother into living against your will. He says she's frozen your assets, seized your properties, and is holding you here under duress. That's not what's happening, Michael said. Then what is happening? Detective Chun asked. Because from what we can see, you're both living in what appears to be substandard conditions. Your bank accounts were frozen 4 days ago, and neither of you has been seen at work or home since. We're here voluntarily, Jennifer said. Are you? Martinez looked at her carefully. Because abuse victims often say they're fine when they're not. Especially when the abuser is present. My mother is not abusing us, Jennifer said sharply. My husband is an entitled ass who can't handle the fact that I chose my family over his ego. Mrs. Thornton, we need to verify that. Can you step outside with me? Just for a moment. Jennifer looked at me. I nodded. Go ahead. Tell them the truth. Jennifer walked outside with Martinez. Chun stayed with Michael and me. Mr. Crawford, Chun said. Are you here of your own free will? Yes. Your business partner also filed a complaint. Says you abandoned your company without warning. That your mother may be influencing you inappropriately. Michael laughed. It wasn't a happy sound. My mother spent 50 years being influenced by me inappropriately. By us taking her for granted. By us treating her like she was nothing. This week? This is us finally learning what we should have learned decades ago. And what's that? That the people who love you aren't ATMs. That success doesn't give you the right to treat family like servants. That sometimes the best thing that can happen to you is losing everything so you remember what actually matters. Chun wrote something in his notebook. The financial freezes. Those are real. Yes. And your mother initiated them? Yes. That's technically financial abuse. Especially if she's using them to control your behavior. She's not controlling us, Michael said. She's teaching us. There's a difference. The law doesn't always see it that way. The door opened. Jennifer came back in with Martinez. Her eyes were red, but she was smiling. I told her everything, Jennifer said. About the dinner. The badge. The corner table. All of it. Martinez looked at me differently now. Not with suspicion. With something else. Understanding, maybe. Or respect. Mrs. Crawford, she said. Your daughter explained the situation. And while what you did was unconventional, it doesn't appear to be criminal. However, Mr. Thornton is pushing for a full investigation. He has resources and connections. Let him push, I said. I have documentation for everything. Every freeze, every lien, every action I took was legal and within my rights as the actual owner of the assets in question. You own their properties? Chin asked, surprised. Through LLCs, yes. I've owned them from the beginning. They thought they were buying them on their own, but the money came from trusts I set up. The deeds are in corporate names I control. Martinez shook her head slowly. That's actually brilliant. Legally complicated, but brilliant. I had a good lawyer. You'll need him. Mr. Thornton is talking about filing for conservatorship, claiming you're not mentally competent to manage your own affairs. The room went cold. He what? Jennifer's voice was ice. He's claiming that no rational person would live this way while sitting on millions of dollars. That it indicates diminished capacity. That someone needs to take control of your finances for your own protection. That son of a bitch. Jennifer pulled out her phone. Emergency call. She dialed. Put it on speaker. Richard answered on the first ring. Jennifer, thank God. Are you okay? Are the police there? Yes, they're here. And they just told me you're trying to have my mother declared incompetent. Silence. Richard, answer me. It's for her own good. She's clearly not thinking straight. She's thinking straighter than anyone I know. She's teaching us a lesson we desperately needed. And you're trying to destroy her for it. I'm trying to protect you. To protect us. By attacking my mother? By calling the police on her? By trying to steal her money. It's not stealing if she can't manage it herself. She's been managing it for 40 years. She turned $500,000 into almost $3 million through careful investments and sacrifice. The only person who can't manage money here is you. Jennifer. No. You don't get to talk anymore. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to withdraw your complaint. You're going to drop the conservatorship filing. And you're going to apologize to my mother for every word you said about her. Or what? Or I'm filing for divorce. Tonight. And I'm telling everyone why. That you tried to steal from an elderly woman because your ego couldn't handle her being smarter than you. You wouldn't. Watch me. She hung up. The detectives looked at each other. Well, Martinez said. That was dramatic. That was necessary, Jennifer corrected. Chun closed his notebook. Mrs. Crawford, we'll need to file a report. But based on what we've seen and heard, there's no evidence of abuse or coercion. However, I strongly suggest you document everything. Get statements from your lawyer. Make sure all your financial arrangements are clearly recorded. They already are, I said. Robert Chun, my lawyer, has maintained detailed records for 30 years. Chun. The detective looked up. Robert Chun from Chin and Associates? Yes. He's one of the best estate lawyers in the state. If he's backing you, Mr. Thornton doesn't have a chance. They left after getting everyone's statements. As soon as the door closed, Jennifer burst into tears. Not sad tears. Angry tears. How dare he, she said. How dare he try to hurt you like that? He was scared, I said. Scared people do stupid things. That's not an excuse. No, it's not. But it's an explanation. Michael was pacing. We need to call Robert. Get ahead of this. Already done, I said. I texted him while you were talking to the detective. He's filing restraining orders against Richard. Cease and desist letters. The works. When did you become such a badass? Michael asked. I've always been a badass. You just weren't paying attention. Jennifer laughed through her tears. Can we still be married if he apologizes? That's up to you. But personally, I don't think you should. Why not? Because he showed you who he is when things got hard. He didn't trust you. Didn't support you. Didn't even try to understand. He went straight to attacking me, trying to take my money, trying to control the situation through force and lawyers. Dad would never have done that. No. Your father would have sat down with you and asked what you needed. Then he would have done everything he could to help you get it. Michael stopped pacing. Mom, I need to tell you something. What? I'm taking the buyout. $300,000. I'm letting the company go. Why? Because I don't want it anymore. I spent 5 years building something I thought would make me happy. It just made me tired. I want to build something else. Something that actually matters. Like what? I don't know yet. But I have $300,000 and a lifetime of experience. That's enough to start over. Jennifer wiped her eyes. I'm leaving Richard. Whether he apologizes or not. You're right. He showed me who he is. And I don't want to be married to someone who would hurt my mother to get to me. What will you do? I asked. Start over. Like Michael. I have money in my own accounts. Savings Richard doesn't know about. I can get an apartment, file for divorce, figure out what comes next. I looked at both of them. My children. Standing in my shabby living room, talking about starting over. About doing better. About being better. You know what tomorrow is? I asked. Day 7, Michael said. The last day. Yes. And at midnight, the freezes lift. Your accounts will be accessible again. The liens will be released. Everything goes back to normal. Except nothing's normal anymore, Jennifer said. No, nothing is. We finished making dinner. The spaghetti had gotten cold, so we reheated it. The sauce was slightly burned, but we ate it anyway. At the table, Michael raised his water glass. A toast, he said. To Mom. For being strong enough to let us fail. For being patient enough to teach us. For being brave enough to do what needed to be done. We clinked our mismatched glasses together. Water, not wine. In a house that needed repairs. At a table with a wobbly leg. But it felt like the most important toast I'd ever been part of. After dinner, we sat on the porch together. The light was still out, but the moon was bright enough to see by. Mom, Jennifer said quietly. Thank you. For what? For not giving up on us. For not writing us off as lost causes. For believing we could learn. You're my children. I never stopped believing in you. Even when you stopped believing in yourselves. Michael leaned his head back against the house. One more day. Then what? Then we see if the lessons stuck. If you remember this when you're back in your comfortable lives. If you treat people differently. If you become the people I always knew you could be. And if we don't? Jennifer asked. Then we do this again. As many times as it takes. They both smiled at that. We sat there until the stars came out. Until the neighbors' lights went off. Until the world got quiet. And I thought about all the years I'd sat on this porch alone. All the nights I'd wished my children were here. All the prayers I'd sent up asking for another chance. Those prayers had been answered. Not the way I expected. Not easily or cleanly or without pain. But answered. Tomorrow would be the last day of their lesson. But it would also be the first day of something new. Something better. Something built on understanding instead of obligation. On respect instead of duty. On love that had been tested and survived. And that, I realized, was worth more than all the money in the world. The last day started before dawn. I woke to the sound of someone in the kitchen. When I came downstairs, both Michael and Jennifer were already up. They'd made coffee. Not just for themselves. For me too. They'd even found the good mugs, the ones I saved for company. "What are you doing up?" I asked. "Couldn't sleep," Michael said. "Kept thinking about everything." "Good everything or bad everything?" "Both." Jennifer was making pancakes. From scratch, not a box. She'd found the recipe I'd written on a note card 20 years ago, my handwriting faded but still legible. "I remember you making these every Sunday," she said. "Before church. We'd eat them too fast and get syrup everywhere." "You'd fight over who got the biggest one," I added. "Michael always got the biggest one." "Because I woke up earlier," Michael defended. "Because Mom liked you better." She did not. They were bickering. Like kids. Like siblings who actually liked each other. It made something in my chest loosen. We ate breakfast together as the sun came up. The pancakes were a little lumpy, but they tasted like home. "So," Michael said, "tonight at midnight, everything goes back. The money. The properties. All of it." "Yes." "What if we asked you not to? What if we said we wanted to leave it frozen?" I set down my fork. "Why would you want that?" "Because having it back means temptation," Jennifer explained. "Means falling into old patterns. Means forgetting what we learned here." "You won't forget." "How do you know?" "Because you're scared you will. That fear will keep you honest." They looked at each other. "I'm still taking the buyout," Michael said. $300,000 for a company I built. It seems wrong, but it also seems right." "Why right?" "Because I'm buying my life back. My time. My freedom. That's worth more than any company." "What will you do with the freedom?" "I don't know yet. Maybe travel. Maybe volunteer. Maybe just exist for a while without every hour being scheduled." Jennifer pushed pancake around her plate. "I called a divorce lawyer yesterday. During my emergency call time. She said I have grounds. Emotional abuse. Financial manipulation. Richard's attempt to have you declared incompetent is actually evidence against him." "How do you feel about that?" "Relieved. Sad. Scared. Angry. Everything at once." "That's normal." "Is it normal to feel relieved that your marriage is ending?" "If the marriage was making you unhappy, yes." She nodded slowly. "I think I've been unhappy for years. I just didn't let myself admit it. Too busy trying to look perfect. To have the perfect house and perfect husband and perfect life." "Nothing's perfect," I said. "The sooner you accept that, the happier you'll be." After breakfast, we cleaned together. Washing dishes by hand because the dishwasher had broken 3 years ago and I'd never fixed it. They didn't complain. Just washed and dried and put away. The doorbell rang at 9. Robert was standing there with a briefcase. "Eleanor. Michael. Jennifer." He nodded to each of us. "May I come in?" We sat in the living room. Robert opened his briefcase and pulled out papers. "The restraining orders against Richard Thornton are in place. He can't contact any of you or attempt any further legal action without facing contempt charges." "Good," Jennifer said. "The conservatorship filing was dismissed. The judge took one look at your financial records, Eleanor, and laughed. Said anyone who could turn $500,000 into $3 million obviously has full mental capacity." "Also good." "The buyout paperwork for Michael's company. I reviewed it. It's insulting, but it's legal. If you sign it, you get $300,000 and you're done. If you fight it, you might get more, but it'll take years and cost a fortune in legal fees." "I'll sign it," Michael said. Robert slid the papers across. Michael signed without hesitation. "And finally," Robert said, pulling out one more document. "The release orders for your accounts. They'll process at midnight tonight. Everything will be unfrozen. You'll have full access to all your assets." He handed me the papers. I looked at them but didn't touch them. Eleanor. Robert prompted. I'm thinking. About what? About whether they're ready. Michael and Jennifer exchanged looks. Mom, Michael said carefully. You said 7 days. It's been 7 days. I said 7 days and I'd release the holds if you learned what you needed to learn. Did you? Yes, they said together. Tell me what you learned. Jennifer went first. I learned that money doesn't make you better than anyone. That the people who serve you, who clean your house and cook your food and do the invisible work, are human beings who deserve respect. That my mother is the strongest person I know, and I was too blind to see it. Michael nodded. I learned that success without family is just expensive loneliness. That everything I built means nothing if I have no one to share it with. That sacrifice is love in action, and Mom's been loving us in ways we never recognized. I looked at Robert. What do you think? I think they learned. Whether they remember is a different question. That's what I'm afraid of. Mom, Jennifer said softly. We'll remember. How could we forget this week? People forget. They get comfortable. They slip back into old patterns. It's human nature. Then help us not forget, Michael said. Don't just release the holds and send us home. Stay part of our lives. Have dinner with us every week. Let us fix your house and change your light bulbs and be the children we should have been all along. And if you forget? If you get busy again? Then remind us. Do whatever you did this week. Freeze our accounts. Take away our toys. Teach us again. I picked up the release papers. Looked at them. 7 days summed up in legal language. Then I signed them. Midnight tonight, I said. Everything goes back. But here are my conditions. Conditions? Robert asked. Sunday dinners. Every week. Here, at this house. You cook, you clean, you help. No exceptions unless someone's in the hospital. Done, Jennifer said. Monthly volunteering at the food bank. All 3 of us. We serve instead of being served. Done, Michael agreed. And one more thing. Before you make any major financial decision, any purchase over $10,000, you call me first. You tell me what you're buying and why. I might not stop you, but you'll have to justify it. That's fair, Michael said. More than fair, Jennifer added. Robert put the papers in his briefcase. I'll file these this afternoon. By midnight, it'll be like the last week never happened. Financially, anyway. It happened, I said. And we're not pretending it didn't. After Robert left, we had the whole day ahead of us. Our last day together before they went back to their lives. What should we do? Jennifer asked. Whatever you want. Can we just stay here? Like this? You want to spend your last day in this old house? Yes. Because tomorrow we go back to houses with too many rooms and too few people. Today, I want to be here. Where it's small and simple and real. So we stayed. We watched movies on the old TV. We played cards at the kitchen table. We made sandwiches for lunch and soup for dinner. We talked about everything and nothing. Michael told stories about his business, the crazy clients and impossible demands. But he told them differently now. Not like they made him important, but like they made him tired. Jennifer talked about her marriage, about the cracks that had been there for years. About Richard's obsession with status and appearances. About how she'd molded herself to fit his expectations until she didn't recognize herself anymore. And I told them things I'd never said. About their father and how much I missed him. About the men I'd turned down over the years. About the loneliness that had been my companion for decades. Why didn't you tell us you were lonely? Jennifer asked. Because you had your own lives. Your own problems. I didn't want to be another burden. You wouldn't have been a burden. You would have been our mother who needed us. I know that now. At 11 o'clock, we made hot chocolate. The cheap kind from the store brand box. It tasted like childhood. We sat at the kitchen table and watched the clock. 30 minutes, Michael said. 30 minutes and everything changes back, Jennifer added. Not everything, I corrected. Your bank accounts change. Your properties unlock. But you're different now. That doesn't change back. Promise us something, Michael said. What? Promise that if we mess up again, if we forget, you won't let us. That you'll do whatever it takes to remind us. Even freeze your accounts again? Even that. I promise. The clock ticked. 20 minutes. 15. 10. At 5 minutes to midnight, Jennifer's phone buzzed. A text from Richard. She read it aloud. I'm sorry. Please come home. We can work this out. What are you going to do? I asked. Tell him I'm already home. And I'll come back to get my things when I'm ready. She typed out the message and hit send. 3 minutes to midnight. I'm scared, Jennifer admitted. Of going back. Of having money again. Of forgetting what this felt like. Then don't forget, I said simply. Keep something from this week. Something small that reminds you. She looked around the kitchen. Her eyes landed on the chipped mug that said World's Best Mom. Can I take that? It's yours. I'll use it every morning. Before my fancy coffee. Before my busy day. I'll use this mug and remember. Michael picked up the wooden spoon I'd used to make dinner. Can I take this? Why a spoon? Because you've been stirring the pot of our lives for 50 years, trying to mix in lessons and love and values. I want to remember that. To do my own stirring instead of expecting someone else to do it for me. 1 minute to midnight. We stood together in the kitchen. The three of us. A family that had broken and was maybe, finally, starting to heal. The clock on the wall clicked to 12. Somewhere in computer systems across the city, codes were changing. Accounts were unlocking. Properties were being released. Legal holds were lifting. My children were rich again. But they were also different. Well, Michael said. We made it. We did, Jennifer agreed. Now comes the hard part, I said. What's that? Living like you learned something. They both hugged me. Long and tight. The kind of hugs I hadn't gotten in years. Thank you, Mom, Jennifer whispered. For what? For not giving up on us. For loving us enough to let us fall. For being strong when we were weak. That's what mothers do. Not all of them. We stood there in my shabby kitchen with my worn-out furniture and my cracked linoleum floor. 3 people who'd traveled a long journey in 7 short days. Tomorrow they'd go home. Back to their lives. Back to decisions and challenges and the constant pull of old habits. But tonight, they were here. With me. Changed. And maybe that was enough. Maybe that was everything. I love you both, I said. More than you'll ever know. We know now, Michael said. Finally, we know. The next morning, they packed their bags. The same bags they'd brought 7 days ago. But they moved differently now. Slower. More careful. Like they were taking time to notice things. Jennifer folded her clothes instead of stuffing them. Michael made the bed before leaving his room. At the door, they both hesitated. This isn't goodbye, Jennifer said. No, I agreed. It's see you Sunday. For dinner. For dinner. They left in a taxi again, leaving their expensive cars behind for now. They'd get them later. I watched them drive away from the porch. The light was still out. The paint was still peeling. The house was still shabby. But something had changed. Not the house. Me. For 50 years, I'd been the one sacrificing. The one giving. The one bending. For 7 days, I'd been the one teaching. The one standing firm. The one refusing to bend. And it had worked. My phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer. Already miss you. See you Sunday. I love you. Then from Michael. Thank you for everything. Signing the buyout papers today. Starting over. Because of you. I sat on the porch and cried. Not sad tears. Not angry tears. Just tears. Release. Relief. Redemption. The neighbors probably thought I was crazy. Old woman sitting on her broken porch crying at 9 in the morning. But I wasn't crazy. I was free. Free from resentment. Free from bitterness. free from the weight of being unloved and unseen. My children had come back. They'd learned. They'd changed. And yes, they might forget. Might slip back into old patterns. Might need reminding. But now I knew I could remind them. That I had power I'd forgotten I possessed. That love sometimes means teaching hard lessons instead of always being soft. The sun came out from behind the clouds. I tilted my face up to it and smiled. In the end, that dinner hadn't destroyed me. It had saved me. It had given me the push I needed to stop accepting less than I deserved. To stop making myself small so others could feel big. That badge they'd pinned on me said, limited guest. They meant it as humiliation. But what they didn't know was that I'd been a limited guest in my own children's lives for years. Limited time. Limited respect. Limited love. Not anymore. Now I was the one setting the limits. The boundaries. The expectations. And they were the ones learning to live within them. That's what real love looks like sometimes. Not soft and sweet. But firm and true. Love that says, I care about you too much to let you become someone I can't respect. My phone buzzed again. Robert this time. Everything's processed. They have full access. The nightmare is over. I typed back, it wasn't a nightmare. It was a wake-up call. For all of us. Inside the house, everything was the same. The broken spring in the chair. The cracked floor. The peeling wallpaper. But I looked at it differently now. Not as evidence of poverty. But as evidence of choice. Of priorities. Of a woman who valued her children's futures over her own comfort. A woman who was strong enough to live small while sitting on millions. A woman who was strong enough to teach the hardest lesson love can teach. That you can lose everything and survive. That humility is learned through experience, not lectures. That family isn't about blood or obligation. It's about showing up. Again and again. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. The week was over. The lesson was taught. But the story wasn't finished. Because real change doesn't happen in 7 days. It happens in the choices you make after those 7 days. In the Sunday dinners. In the phone calls. In the moments when you have to choose between old habits and new understanding. My children had chosen understanding. Now they had to choose it again. And again. And again. Until it wasn't a choice anymore. Until it was just who they were. And I'd be here. Waiting. Watching. Ready to teach the lesson again if they needed it. Because that's what mothers do. We don't give up. We don't quit. We don't stop loving just because loving is hard. We stand firm. We set boundaries. We teach lessons. And we pray that somewhere along the way, our children learn them. Mine finally had. And that badge they'd pinned on me? The one that said, limited guest? I kept it. Framed it. Hung it in my kitchen where I'd see it every day. Not as a reminder of humiliation. But as a reminder of transformation. Of the night everything changed. The night I stopped accepting less. The night I taught my children what they should have learned decades ago. The night a limited guest became the most important person in the room. So if you're watching this and you've ever felt invisible, unappreciated, taken for granted, remember this story. Remember that you have power. That you can teach lessons. That love sometimes means standing firm instead of always bending. And most importantly, remember that it's never too late. Never too late to change. To learn. To become the family you were always meant to be. If this story touched you, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because every week, we share stories about real people facing real struggles and finding real redemption. Share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us about a time you had to teach someone a hard lesson. Tell us about your own journey from being taken for granted to being truly seen. Your story might inspire someone else who's sitting in a corner, wearing a badge they don't deserve. Together, we can remind each other that we're worth more than we've been told. That we deserve better than we've accepted. That we can change our stories, starting today. See you next time, family. And remember, you're never just a limited guest. You're the whole celebration.